Yeah, so that's why we find a transformation of the God concept in the Bible from the Old to the New Testament. And whereas the Old Testament God was more based on good and judging and a very rigid definition of good versus evil that was outside of the concept of God. Towards the New Testament, we find a transformation towards the concept of love. And love means that we integrate the opposites. And that you find that the difficulty in that in sayings like love thy enemy. And so ultimately love will conquer, meaning that no matter how ugly that opposite is, and how we know now that it becomes ugly because we reject it, but anything that is embraced transforms and becomes beautiful. And that's the power of love. Even evil. Not in terms of a worship of evil, in terms of a re-accepting and a reintegrating of what was quarantined or exiled. And
why is it impossible for people to accept
this is very
the rejected?
Because we have been profoundly programmed to separate evil and good, and to polarize. And as I said, which is an important stage, which is a very important stage in the development of self-consciousness. But once the poles have come apart, then we have to come towards a stage of self-awareness and the integrating of the poles. And what is happening now is that we not only took them apart, now we are splitting them apart. So in a sense, the concept of evil as being something that is irreconcilable with good is the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. And I am convinced that most of 99% of what's going on now in terms of keep separating good and evil is done unconsciously. I don't think that most of this is not done in a way that we could say is conscious. I think a lot of it is just that we have been programmed to entertain this concept of a battle between good and evil, and in terms of it being ultimately irreconcilable.
So what can one do to try to accept what they rejected? Let's say you have been abused. How can you now come to terms with that?
All right. This is the healing work that has to be done to heal the people and the nations, and the work where we learn that whatever we are rejecting out there is part of us, inside of us, is a part of us, and that we need to start that inner work, and it has to be something that is done at all levels. And because when I stop being the victim, inevitably the abuser will dissipate. There cannot be an abuser without a victim. But the work has to be done from within. I cannot defeat the abuser out there. I defeat the abuser in terms of healing the victim within me. The victim and the abuser are inevitable opposites. And the world will change outside when we start to heal inside. If we keep projecting the evil without, we will inevitably create it, which is what we are witnessing now. So the only way is to stop these projections and to realize that these opposites are part of an underlying unit, and that they have served us to become self-conscious, which is the main program of what's going on the planet. The whole journey was made in order for us to become self-conscious, and great sacrifices were made in order for this to happen. The greatest being the renting apart of opposites. But now we have to get into what I call a paradoxical thinking. A thinking where we realize that everything, the two is the unit. Without the opposites, there's no wholeness. We need them. It's not that we go beyond the opposites because we don't profoundly realize that we need them. Without the opposites, there's no wholeness. So it's not a matter of saying that we go beyond the opposites, but we integrate them, and that creates self-consciousness. And the self, in terms of Jung with a capital S, is what we could call like the Holy Spirit, or the whole consciousness. And that's why, for instance, Jesus said in the Bible that only when he left, he could send the great comforter, or the Holy Spirit, meaning that that stage had to die and for this new stage to emerge, which is the stage of this whole spirit. It's not good or evil anymore, it's whole, which is a much more interesting concept than good or evil, because it's a paradox, it's both. It's like saying, I am flexible and consistent. I am serious and funny at the same time. So then the whole of the Holy Spirit is that paradox, which is complete, and it's neither evil or good in terms of those extreme concepts. So yes, a lot of these old concepts as the Antichrist and the devil and evil, they have served us well for 2,000 years, but they are simply, as it were, the womb, the vessel for the birth of this whole human.